According to OSHA, approximately 5.6 million workers in healthcare and other facilities are at risk of exposure to blood-borne pathogens such as HIV, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C. Employers are required to adhere to all OSHA standards and provide training to employees that could be exposed to blood-borne pathogens. Employees are required to take the blood-borne pathogen training and follow all procedures related to the handling of potentially infectious materials. OSHA's blood-borne pathogen standard prescribes safeguards to protect workers against the health hazards from exposure to blood and other potentially infectious materials, and to reduce their risk from this exposure. All employees who may face contact with blood and other potentially infectious materials while performing the duties of their job are covered by the blood-borne pathogens standard. Good Samaritan acts, such as assisting a coworker with a nosebleed, would not be considered occupational exposure. Exposure can occur as the result of a needle stick, a cut from a sharp object, or contact of mucous membranes, for example, the eye, nose, mouth, or broken skin with contaminated blood. Treat all human blood and body fluids as if they are infectious. Here are some examples of blood-borne pathogens that you should be familiar with. Hepatitis B is a disease that attacks the liver. The disease can be prevented by a hepatitis B vaccine. Symptoms include fatigue, stomach pain, nausea, loss of appetite, jaundice, and darkened urine, though sometimes the disease doesn't present any symptoms. Hepatitis C is also a disease that attacks the liver. However, the disease cannot be prevented by vaccine. Signs and symptoms of the disease include fatigue, weight loss, nausea, and depression. The majority of people don't have any symptoms. HIV is the virus that causes AIDS. When a person has HIV, it means that the HIV virus is in his or her body. Over 1 million people are living with HIV in the United States. When a person has AIDS, it means HIV has made it so the body cannot fight off infections. Since AIDS is an advanced form of an HIV infection, everyone who has AIDS also has HIV. Symptoms can include fever, chills, rash, night sweats, muscle aches, fatigue, and swollen lymph nodes. If you are exposed to potentially infectious materials, wash the exposed area with soap and water. Splash your nose, mouth, or skin with water. Irrigate your eyes with water or saline. Report the exposure to a supervisor. If another worker comes into contact with infectious materials, direct the worker to a healthcare professional immediately. Specialized clothing or equipment worn by an employee for protection against infectious materials must be properly cleaned, laundered, repaired, and disposed of at no cost to employees. Handle contaminated laundry as little as possible and use personal protective equipment. Laundry must be bagged or containerized at location where used, and must be placed and transported in labeled or color-coded containers. Contaminated work surfaces must be decontaminated with an appropriate disinfectant. Biohazard warning labels are required on containers of regulated waste, refrigerators and freezers containing blood and other potentially infectious materials, and other containers used to store, transport, or ship blood or other potentially infectious materials. In summary, OSHA's blood-borne pathogens standard prescribes safeguards to protect workers against the health hazards from exposure to blood and other potentially infectious materials, and to reduce their risk from this exposure. Implementation of this standard will help prevent hepatitis B cases and significantly reduce the risk of workers contracting AIDS, hepatitis C, or other blood-borne diseases.